Senator, what do you make of President Trump's decision to fire FBI Director James Comey?
I think Comey's a great American who desired to serve our country, but he had become an issue. And both the conservatives and the liberals were taking shots at him. At some point, that becomes a distraction to the agency's mission. I think it was probably the right decision.
What do you make of the criticism that by firing him, President Trump is firing the individual who is leading the investigation into the meddling, Russia's meddling of the election?
First, I would say there was a hearing last week which seemed to suggest that there's no evidence whatsoever of Russian meddling in the election beyond that which we know. Number one. Number two, though, he is overseeing. He's not leading. I can tell you there's someone else, his chief assistant or someone, who is actually coordinating with all the officers. And there are multiple officers on this. So the idea that you take the person who's got every other responsibility, including the budget of the department, taking him away, and somehow it all falls apart, that's not how organizations work. I think the investigation continues.
Do you think there should be a special prosecutor?
No. I think that the Senate Intelligence Committee, bipartisan, is taking this very seriously, and no one's had criticism of their proceedings. I think we should trust the process.
So how will this type of news influence the president as he looks to accomplish other items on his legislative to-do list, such as health care reform? Obviously, you are one of the go-to lawmakers in the Senate who is working on that.
It's my perception that Democrats are so disappointed with Hillary's loss and Donald's win that they've made a decision to oppose almost anything he proposes. Not entirely, but substantially. On health care, if we had Democrats engaged, it would make all the difference in the world. But just as any good piece of legislation has the whole spectrum represented, so health care reform would be. If Democrats came on board, if they got off the sidelines, if they stopped being passive, engaged in the process, would end up with a better product. I challenge them to do so.
What's the timeline for health care reform in the Senate?
We are working through it now. Give us, obviously it's eventually up to Mitch McConnell, but imagine at least 4 to 6 weeks. Probably it should take longer. But then it will take a CBO score, and that'll be 2 to 3 weeks after that.
So just my final question. Do you think that the news of President Trump's firing Director Comey will have any influence on lawmakers here in Congress' ability, or will be a distraction to prevent them from doing other items such as health care reform or tax reform?
No, the Senate commonly multitask. And with this kind of news cycle, who knows what happens tomorrow, right? So I think we'll all be able to continue on our task.